because the amount of energy of the sun heating the earth in 1 hour is more than the total world's energy consumption in 1 year. But the thing is that we need devices that have the ability to capture the radiation of the sun, convert it to energy, and also storage that energy. So based on that, my lab is interested in contributing with this process, studying different catalytic perovskites that are based on nickel and iron to decrease the activation energy of the oxygen evolution reaction. And basically, this is the image that represents the catalysis process of the oxygen evolution reaction that is that symbol as that when the catalyst is present, it makes that reaction to occur more fast or more quickly. This is the oxygen evolution reaction that is basically the electrolysis or splitting of water molecules into demolecular oxygen and hydrogen. And this reaction is important for us because we can store energy on hydrogen bonds. And that is relevant for solar water splitting devices that I think that you will be more familiar with this image that is a solar panel. So I think that because of this, it's relevant to tell you that some of these type of devices work as photoelectrochemical cells. So because of that, I want to start explaining to you a little of how this type of machines of equipment work because it's relevant for my purposes. First of all, it's composed of three electrodes in which you have the working electrode, the reference electrode, and the cathode or cathode electrode. This system is submerged in a solution that is an electrolyte solution, and for our purposes, it's a sodium hydroxide solution. And two reactions occur simultaneously in this process, the oxygen evolution reaction and the hydrogen evolution reaction. What occurs in here basically is that when the sun hits and emits a photon with enough energy, it interacts in the working electrode with the hole, and the charges get separated and the electrons move to the cathode. When this process occurs 4 times, now the water molecules have enough energy to split, and the molecular oxygen is formed as well as the hydrogen molecules. And this is the oxygen evolution reaction. So basically, our purposes in this project is to develop materials that we can place in the working electrode and can make this reaction work quickly or fast. So, but why are we interested on nickel and iron metals, being that a lot amount of metals? Well, first of all, because the ones that are used right now are based on iridium and ruthenium that are expensive and are based on not abundant metals. That this is not the case with nickel and iron. And also because if you, when we start looking on previous studies, we found numerous citations available from 1980s. This is some examples of these citations. On all of them agree in the fact that when you have materials that are based on nickel-based materials, and you add some traces or impurities of iron, you can improve the catalytic activity of those materials. But also, all of these studies are similar in the fact that they use amorphous molecules. So, as a way of a review, this is the type of structure that have an amorphous material. So, all of them, as a way of recap, conclude that if you have the ability to mix or synthesize 2 different metals for catalytic purposes, you can improve the catalytic activities of these materials. So we start from that point, and my lab thinks in the idea of why we don't use perovskites. Why perovskites? Because previous studies have shown that 90% of the metals from the periodic table maintain their characteristics when they are synthesizing this type of structure. So this sounds like too good for us. This type of structure consists or is in this form in which you have APO3 being 2 cations and 1 anion. That the A is the biggest one that in here is represented by the green balls, and the B one is the blue balls. That for our purposes will be the ones that we will be changing the ratio of nickel and iron in the blue balls. So now that you know and understand what is a perovskite, I can explain to you or put in context my project. As the overall, my lab tries to study catalytic molecules for energy purposes, but my specific project studied the characteristic of different nickel and iron-based perovskite for the catalysis of water, of the oxygen-evolution reaction. But this project is being performed in a collaboration with Dr. Marta's Green Lab, in which they synthesize and characterize these materials and then pass to my lab, in which I can make my contribution. That is in the study of the electrochemical properties and also the electrocatalytic properties of these materials. This one is the base different type of materials that I studied during this summer, in which all of them are perovskites. And the first one, this molecular formula, is representative of all of these materials, in which you can see that we vary the ratio of the nickel and iron amount in the blue balls, the B position of the perovskites. All of these experiments I performed on triplicate, and we want to correlate my results with the ones that were obtained on Dr. Marta's Green lab. So once the synthesis of the different materials is done, I pass or move to the next step, that is preparing the inks. I need to prepare these inks because I need a better a more comfortable material to work with. So I prepared these inks, in which I mixed 6 milligrams of the catalyst with this total volume that is composed of water, ethanol, and naphthalene, that is a polymer, and with 1.5 milligrams of carbon. And then I prepared this ink and immobilizing the 5 microliters in the electrode surface. Once this is dry, is sufficiently dry, after this time, we measure the electrocatalytic properties in this type of electrochemical cell in an electrolyte solution of sodium hydroxide, as I mentioned before. In this cell, we place the working electrode with the catalyst in there, the reference electrode, and the cathode in the orange number of the electrochemical cell. And once we have the cell ready, we can perform the electrochemical experiments, that basically the experiments that technique that we use is simply voltammetry, in which we run a potential with time and we measure the current density that we obtain from the different materials. And we are looking for 3 main points from the information or the data that I obtained from these experiments. That is the current density at 0.4 volts. That number is because that value is like the less amount that I need of potential for an optimum, for the optimum of the oxygen evolution reaction, the optimum conditions for the oxygen evolution reaction. And also I want to look for the potential at this current density, because previous research has shown that this current density is correlated with 10% of efficiency in solar water splitting devices. And finally, we want to look also for the Tafels law that I'm going to explain in the next slide. This is some of the examples of the results that I obtained during the summer. I'm going to start with this part, with the graphs, in which I select 4 of the materials. The one doesn't have iron, one that has the less amount of iron, this one that has the more amount of iron, and this one that has like something in the middle. And first of all, each line or each cycle of the graph is representative of a series of experiments, of electrochemical experiments that I do. These graphs are made of the overpotential versus the current density. What I do was I run each cycle of each catalyst until the time that it keeps activating with a maximum amount of cycles of 3 cycles. How do I know that it is activating? Well, first of all, because the increase in the current density, and second, because the decrease in the overpotential. Also, what I want you to know of these graphs is that this line is representative of the value that correlates with the 10% of efficiency in the solar water splitting devices. So, as we can see in here, this has a pretty good behavior because it keeps activating and also achieves the 10% of efficiency, but we can say that of these two, it's true that they keep activating with time, but they doesn't achieve the 10% of efficiency for our purposes. And this one, it's true that it doesn't keep increasing or decreasing the over potential, but it has very high current density that is more than the representative of the 10% of efficiency, and is quite stable, the product. So this is also a good result for us. And from this type of data, we can obtain the TAFL slope. This is an example of the TAFL slope of this compound, in which what we basically do is that we graph the over potential versus the log of the current density, and we take out the slope from here. This is important for us because, and we are looking for the smaller possible number, because that represents that we have to input less amount of over potential or less amount of energy to make the reaction occur. So we are looking in this table, I do an average of each of the triplicates of each compound in each cycle, and for you to see or have an idea of how are the behaviors of the TAFL slope. And in here, you can observe that the one of 0.7, 0.3 is the better one that performs in here, because it have the biggest decrease in comparison with these results that, as I mentioned before, achieve the 10% of efficiency in the solar water splitting devices. So this is my table with all the results and triplicate, some of them, the ones that I have until now. And this is also one preliminary result that I want to share with you that were performed in collaboration with my grad student. He do the scanning electron microscope images of these two catalysts, in which you can observe that it's a clear difference in the morphology between the different materials. And I put in here my cyclical chemistry experiment results, in which you can see that also it says a clear difference between the behavior, the electrocatalytic behavior of the material. So this suggests to us that we can, in some point, we can correlate the molecular structure of the material with the morphology of them, and also with the catalytic activity of these materials. So this is one of our preliminary conclusions, the one that I just say now. And the other one is that, unfortunately, the absolute activity numbers are not as good as the amorphous materials, because with this I refer that in the table with all the triplicate, with all the catalysts, most of them doesn't achieve the value, the current density that correlates with the 10% of efficiency of the materials. But the good news is that we believe that we developed a coherent method for isolating the most active form of the nickel and iron-based perovskites. So my acknowledgements are for Dr. Charles Smith, that is my PI, for the opportunity of being in his lab, for my PhD student Graham Garner, for his mentoring and his patience, for Dr. Marta's Brinda's lab because of all the materials,